Greetings, Quester, and welcome to Tiny Meeples' Big Talk with Matt and Richard.
And welcome to this Tiny Meeples Big Talk. Now, this week we're not going to be doing one of our big mashups. We're not going to be doing a big versus topic.
There's no question mark on the title anyway.
There is not. This week we're just going to be presenting our opinion of our first impressions, perhaps, of Star Trek Discovery.
Now, I thought this question was just going to be Star Trek Discovery. That's the title of this big
Star
talk.
Trek Discovery?
Yeah, Discovery. Star Trek. So,
Yeah. Now,
basically, there's a new Star Trek.
yes, and if you've not been that familiar with us before, you'll have noticed that we both are big fans of Star Trek and Star Wars. And Stargate and most things with Star in the title.
Most things.
Most things.
I was so happy that they brought out a new series of Star Trek. That is cool.
I was really looking
Well
forward
done,
to a
people.
new series of
Whoever
Star
the
Trek.
hell did it.
But I had a different reaction to Richard.
I was just talking about like when I suddenly realised it's out tomorrow because it kind of suddenly came up on my Netflix. Because I knew they were going to make a new series of Star Trek because obviously we found out a few years before, and I thought, oh, that's going to be so great. But they're going to kind of stream it on, I think it was the CBS, having their own streaming service and everything. So I thought I'm going to have to kind of set up one of those when it comes out, because I thought that's definitely going to be worth it because I want to see whatever the new Star Trek is. But then it just suddenly came up on my Netflix, like, it's on here every week. So I was like, yes, because I already watch Netflix all the time anyway.
It's kind of strange though, isn't it? Because if you're in America, you need a CBS subscription. But here, because we're not in America, we get it on Netflix.
I know, that's sweet.
But my reaction was a little bit different because when I first heard there was going to be a new Star Trek series, obviously at first I was like, yeah, new Star Trek. But then I thought, going to the past again? Because I wanted them to do something set after the Dominion War, sort of from the end of DS9.
It's what you call the past.
Yes.
Everybody else and the time-space continuum calls it the future.
Yes. But you know what I mean? It's in a Star Trek universe that is now obviously the Kelvin timeline.
Actually, I found out recently it's actually the Prime timeline. I thought it was
Really?
Kelvin. Yeah, it looks very Kelvinish, but apparently no, it's Prime.
Oh.
So
I
there's
did not
going
know
to
that.
be no Romulans that we see. Apparently, the Romulans are kind of a sore point with the writers. Nobody's allowed to mention Romulans in the writers' room because it starts arguments. That's what I've heard anyway.
The thing is, I kind of, as I say, I really wanted them to go, because we've got so much established timeline in Star Trek.
Yeah,
I kind of wanted them to sort of take that forward from the point of, Deep Space Nine and Voyager returning to the Alpha Quadrant, and because there's so much I think that they could do there. I mean, with the Cardassian Union rebuilding, as well as the Federation and the Klingons and everyone else at the end of the Dominion War, I feel like there's so much scope for a new series there, and perhaps exploration into the Delta Quadrant, the Gamma Quadrant. There's so much that they could have done. I just thought, if we're going back again, and the problem is that I think inherently when you go back like that, you put in roadblocks in front of yourself, because you kind of, every time you think, well, we could write this, but it doesn't agree with the existing timeline continuum, there are going to be those people that say, well, it doesn't matter, let's just go with it because it'll be good for the story. And then you've got other people going, but this isn't what it's established, and you're kind of throwing up objections that if you just gone into the future wouldn't have been there. So you kind of put in unnecessarily problems in place for yourself to work around. And also, when it actually started and the Klingons came on, I was like, what the heck have they done with the Klingons? One friend of mine described it best when he said that it was like they'd decided to make them look like the Drow from Dungeons and Dragons. It kind of doesn't look
witticism there.
Yeah, it kind of didn't look
Good
like
reference.
Star Trek to me.
Klingons look like the Drow.
But they did look more like some sort of fantasy.
They
race
reminded
than
me
the
a bit of
Klingons.
the Dark Elves from Skyrim as well. But
Yeah.
without the hair.
Well, the Drow are Dark Elves, so yeah. So we're in agreement on that.
Maybe there's several people copying several people. Maybe Skyrim stole it from Dungeons and Dragons. And
I mean, the thing is, in Star Trek, the Klingons have changed several times now over the various
It's the
series
classic
from the original
thing.
series to the Next Generation.
You just
to
change the
Enterprise,
Klingons.
and well, they can't just do something horrible to O'Brien anymore. They have to.
No. Maybe they went round to Cold Meanie and let down his tyres or something.
So I wasn't particularly happy it was going to be set in the past, but I thought I'll give it a chance.
There was lots of sadness coming from this house.
Yeah, there were things that I thought was going to be interesting. I wasn't quite convinced of, like having a main character.
Convince me.
Yeah, but like having a main character. Star Trek have never really had a main character. It's always been the crew, and you get different stories that will follow different members of the crew. Whereas this has got its main character, and it follows a more continuous storyline as opposed to the more episodic feels of, say, the Next Generation.
I don't know. I didn't really.
Voyager.
Yeah. When you were talking about that, I can kind of see what you mean.
It's like a continuous story arc.
Well, basically, normally they have the main character being the captain, and this time they haven't. But I know what you mean. There's from the Next Generation onwards, they started doing like focusing. This time it's like a Geordie story. This time it's a Data one. More often than not, though, it does tend to focus on the captain quite a lot. But this time, yeah, it's very much. So far,
I'd say
kind of
Next
a bit of
Generation,
a
it
lineage.
probably focused on Data as much as it did on Picard, to be honest.
It did. Well, there's lots of interesting stuff you can do with Data's character,
Yeah.
but no, they did. They realised that it wasn't working and that they had to start focusing on one character per episode, basically, but with an A story and a B story.
I don't think you can say it wasn't working. I mean, it worked so well across.
No, this is just an interview I heard.
Oh, right,
They
okay.
said it wasn't.
So that was
working,
their view then.
Yeah, it was becoming difficult to write because it seemed a bit weird just having it like an entire crew every episode. It worked back in the 60s, kind of. Well, obviously, in the 60s you had Kirk, Spock, McCoy were the main characters.
Yeah.
And then later on there was some that focused on Scotty or Chekhov or somebody. But
Well, it was more the later series, wasn't it? I say the Next Generation DS9 that did that, because then they would have episodes with literally every member of the crew, and in DS9's case, even members that weren't of the crew. So there was quite a few of episodes that were Ferengi centric with.
Oh yeah, but they're all characters,
Quark,
not,
but they
even
were
though they're
recurring,
not.
regular characters.
They don't have to have a Starfleet badge and paycheck in fake non-existent money. So, yeah, kudos. That's what they get.
But it did work. It did work well. I think perhaps they thought that maybe having a single main character might make it easier to market.
Single
perhaps.
female Starfleet. I don't know, maybe. It seems a little bit like I know it's different to this, but a little bit like the droids in Star Wars, that they're the ones that seem to be narrating the story. Obviously, it's focused on Michael, what she's doing at the moment. But I kind of imagine it turning into more of a... we've only watched 6 episodes so far, so I imagine it becoming more focusing on different characters as it goes later on, once the crew is a bit more established and everything. Because really, we're in kind of the Klingon War story arc, which Michael had a role in starting. I don't really agree with the other people on the ship that I don't think she started it so much. I think it was going to start anyway.
I don't blame her for that.
No, but
I think
it's
she's been
easy.
unfairly maligned in that sense.
They've
But
just been reading the headlines, haven't
But
they?
what she did, yeah, it was all fake news. But what she did do, I mean, I'll come back to this in a minute, because I was going to say that one of the things about having episodes where it focuses on different members of the crew that's good is that if you don't like a main character, or if you don't like one character, so say for example in the Next Generation, if you didn't like Riker, and who didn't like Riker, but if you didn't like Riker, you'd be like, all right,
crazy.
yeah, all right, I don't like Riker, but this is an episode about Geordie, and I love Geordie.
Well, it could
this
be
is an
the ones
episode
that-
about Beverly, and I love Beverly.
If you didn't like Riker, you could watch one about Barclay, who's like
Yeah.
the opposite of Riker.
the anti-Riker. if you
Yeah,
will.
basically, yeah. If they shook hands, the universe would explode.
Yeah, but you know what I mean. So whereas if you kind of have one main character, you kind of put in a lot of eggs into that basket, because if someone doesn't like that main character, then they're probably not going to like the rest of the show.
Which is why you don't like that character and you don't like the rest of the show.
Actually, my views on the show changed probably around episode
That's
4.
good, because you were getting annoying for a while.
Dude!
Sorry.
To the face!
Yeah. Well, okay.
Is this your knife in my back?
I could say it behind your back.
But no, I'm not a fan of Michael Burnham's character.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why. I just find that in the first couple of episodes, I could understand they were trying to go for like a Spock level of emotionless, a Vulcan level of emotionless. But it just didn't sit with the character. I mean, Sonequa Martin Green, who plays Michael Burnham, is a very good actress.
You going to say what she was in? No.
She's been in other stuff before that I've watched, and
Yeah.
you know, in those, I genuinely cared about what happened to her.
I didn't know who this actress was. I'd never seen her
know,
in anything.
And in this, I don't know, there was just something, it felt unlikable about the character. Perhaps that's what they were going for, and we're gonna see her becoming more human as time goes on. And I think that's what's happened slowly over the arc. She's started to act slightly more human, and as that's happened, she's become slightly more likable, I think, in a way.
Right.
But like in episode 2, we saw her effectively assaulting a captain and committing mutiny. And then in the next episode, she's saying to Captain Lorca that she's going to live and die by the principles of Starfleet. And that just didn't seem right to me. It was kind of an element of bad writing. But there are characters...
that wasn't bad writing. She's been sitting in a cell for 6 months at that point. And, I mean, she wanted to save her crew, which she saw as being more important in that situation, and she made a bad decision. But you know, she wanted to take her medicine, basically, which is what I think that's in line with Starfleet ideals, really. But yeah,
she wanted to stay as a prisoner and serve her time.
Yeah, I mean, think you can say it's not logical.
I respect that.
Yeah,
I do respect that. I did like Saru's character.
I loved Saru. When I first watched it, I thought, I like that tall alien who's scared of everything.
I wasn't entirely sure about him at first, but it's probably more I like him when he's on the Discovery and not on the in the pilot episodes. I did think it was a shame that they killed off Michelle Yeoh's character, because she was good and she was interesting and she's a good actress. So that was a shame. But for me, I found I was watching several episodes and I literally didn't care about any of the characters. That changed over time. As I say, I find that...
Why do you want to care about characters? They want a cool ship in space.
Because I think you kind of, to be emotionally invested, you kind of have to give a damn whether a character's going to live or die in a given situation. But I just didn't feel like that at all. None of the characters mattered to me. But as time's gone on, as I say, I've sort of... Michael doesn't annoy me the way she did at first, so that's always a positive. Tilly was the one that I first started to really like.
Well, she seems a lot more human than a lot of the others. I mean, in Star Trek in general, the humans aren't very human, because they're kind of like some kind of post-scarcity, almost perfect examples of ideal humans. So they seem a bit
for
weird
example,
to us.
Early series, Julian Bashir, Beverly Crusher, these sort of characters would probably fit very well into what you've just said.
Well, basically all of them. I mean, on DS9 there was a massive difference between the human characters and the Ferengi. I've heard it said like the Ferengi seem like the most human ones there. So
very relatable.
Yeah, that's it. And everybody seems obviously they're acting very well, but this seemed kind of almost wooden next to it, because they're having to play these roles. Obviously, actually O'Brien seems very human as well.
Yeah.
He's obviously it's the Next
everybody loves
Generation.
O'Brien, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, I like that one in the Next Generation where he doesn't think he hates Cardassians, but he's being horrible to the Cardassians all the time. That's very kind of human, I think. Yeah.
And but yeah, Tilly was the first one I thought was actually the first glimmer of a likable character. Though I quite liked Ash Tyler, who we met in, is it episode 4? We met Ash Tyler.
Yeah,
episode 5?
Yeah. I mean, to me, I'm just so sick of talking about characters and things, and it's like characters are always the thing that you have to talk about. Like when I did English literature and things like that, and I just, I like the ship, the settings, the adventure, all that kind of stuff. And I'm not going to say characters aren't important. It's just what matters to me in Star Trek is that I can kind of put myself there and want to be there and be part of the adventure and everything. And to me, I really have been enjoying the Discovery episodes, like on that level for the whole thing. I know you've had very strong feelings about the characters right from the first episode, and I couldn't even join in with you in the conversations or like argue in favour of them because I just wasn't bothered. I mean, you might as well ask me if I like the light switch or not. I mean, it's just so. Like the characters were just there.
So why do people pay the cast so much if no one cares?
I don't care. They can do what they want. But yeah, I enjoyed the elements that they put into the pilot episode. So I really enjoyed that.
Takuvma the unforgettable.
Yeah. I like
Takuvma the easily forgettable.
the Klingons were a bit weird, but I liked the Starfleet stuff more than the Klingon stuff because the Klingon language has got a bit weird. Like it keeps starting and stopping. It's a bit difficult to listen to. But what I liked was, and I know you didn't like this so much about Michael, that she was like emotionless and everything. I just really liked the fact that they had a human that had learnt the Vulcan purging of emotions and stuff. I think that's something that I've wanted to see in a long time, and I've always liked the idea of being able to do that. I mean, if ever I've like been upset or something, I just think I wish I was a Vulcan, and I just love the idea that they've had that now in Star Trek more so than they did in Voyager when Harry Kim suddenly decided he wanted to be Vulcan. It lasted like half an episode, but yeah, just because the Vulcans aren't naturally emotionless.
With Harry Kim, he'd been emotional all his life.
He was in love with a girl.
And then he just decided, I want to purge these emotions so I don't have to feel bad because I'm lovesick.
It was so great that.
Whereas with Michael,
Tufok was teaching him.
She'd been raised from a young age to follow Vulcan philosophy.
Which you now learn as kind of Salak's experiment.
But I think it kind of. The thing is, what's important to remember there is that Vulcans have only purged the showing of emotion. They still feel those emotions. They just try and hide them.
I don't know. I think they use meditation to purge them. They still have them, but they just won't feel them on the conscious level. So it is the same. It's not like they're just kind of bottling it up.
I think Spock really encapsulated that because he had his human side to fight against as well. And of course for Michael, she's fully human. She's not part Vulcan. She's just had that training. Yeah, I thought that was interesting, but it kind of somehow it came across in a more snobbish way to me than it did with Spock.
Oh no, the Vulcans are snobs. I won't argue with you on that.
It kind of that kind of came through very much strongly with, I think, with Michael. Whereas with Spock, there was kind of like sometimes an aloof superiority.
A lot of the time, actually.
Never that quite the snobbishness.
Yeah,
but he did show a lot of sass.
He did. I was just going to say that. Like, if you watch the original series, like Spock seems to show disapproval a lot, and
just with an eyebrow.
Yeah, well, two eyebrows sometimes. There's a lot where it ends with Spock kind of going like giving them the right look,
usually to
right
McCoy,
stink face look. Yeah, that's so. Yeah, and I mean, at the moment I'm watching Discovery obviously once a week when it's on. I'm also, my mum and dad have recently just started watching Enterprise, and so I've been watching those like most evening. I watched them when they were on anyway, but. The Vulcans are so snobby in that. I mean, the whole it should, instead of being called Enterprise, it should be called We Hate the Vulcans. And so yeah, I'm getting a lot of weirdness from Vulcans at the moment on both programs. So
I mean, with regards to the actual storyline, I'm enjoying the Star Trek Discovery storyline, and that's to me is why I've probably stuck with it, even though I didn't really like a lot of the characters.
Well, you have to watch it anyway.
I like, yeah, well, I wouldn't. But I like the storyline. I like where they've gone. I thought it was interesting. I do think that the Spore Drive sounds stupid.
It does sound
but
stupid.
It looks amazing when it's used.
I absolutely. The first time I used it, and the saucer section was spinning, and then it all flipped over, then just teleported across the universe. I think that was great. I love that.
And that shows clever writing. If they want us to swallow something so inherently garbage, give us something shiny to look at.
Yeah. I don't. When I actually think about it, though, I don't think it's as crazy as it seems when you consider a lot of the other things that there were in Star Trek. And I think I might have already mentioned it today when I was talking about The Expanse, but gravity plating is something that I've always had a problem with.
Well, if we're going to start analysing
no
Star Trek for science, it's going to fall apart.
Well, this is it. But Spore Drive isn't as crazy, crazier than the rest of it. It is a very different idea, though. And when Stamens was explaining, it's like it's physics as biology or something. I think that's really good because everything is made of like fundamental quarks, and spores are so small. Once you get so close to Planck's constant, loads of weird stuff does go on. And just this idea that there's life forms that can kind of travel that. I don't think it's
yeah, I like that idea with like
outside
the Ripper creature. That he was an interesting
giant water bear.
Yeah, it was interesting.
Cool.
I felt sorry for him, but it was interesting. But
Yeah.
I think because with Star Trek, people think, oh, Star Trek, it's scientific. It's actually a lot of the time it's not. It's just it's put across in a way that sounds
They
scientific.
use a lot of scientific words and concepts as well. They'll put them in, but there's just so much craziness with it because the ship has to on the inside be like a normal room that you'd have on Earth, and there's just so much you have to invent to be able to do that in space. And also obviously there's transporters, warp drive. It's all outside of what we understand of physics, but they do actually spend a lot of time kind of thinking about how it actually works in their universe, so it's alright, but you just kind of know that it's going to be crazy.
But I'm slowly starting to be more accepting of Michael Burnham. I really like Shazad Latif as Ash Tyler. He's a really good character.
I'm not too bothered about him.
I quite like Tilly because I felt Tilly was more relatable. There was just something inherently likeable about Tilly. Lorca, at first, I wasn't that keen on the captain.
But
I
thought he was going to be a baddie.
I kind of had that feeling, and as time's gone on, he again seems to be slowly more relatable. And I think in the last episode particularly, without going into spoilers, there were a few instances where he started to seem more human.
Yeah.
And we started to warm to him a bit.
Yeah,
but
and he
Doug
loves,
Jones
he loves his ship. That's the one thing you need about a captain, and it's just... I know I wasn't going to really be too bothered about characters, but I just know when he's on the screen, there's going to be interesting things said and done. Yeah. And that's what I like about him.
But both Doug Jones, who plays Saru, and Jason Isaacs, who plays Captain Lorca, are both very good actors. And
brilliant.
Can't fault them on that. So as time's gone on, I think because I've sort of stuck with it because of I like the idea of the story, I've started to like Discovery more. I do think there's a lot of flaws in it, but hey, there's going to be flaws in any show.
Yeah.
But certainly nothing enough that's going to put me off watching it. And ultimately, I mean, it's Star Trek. I was if they'd slapped the USS Enterprise on the side of a garbage truck and filmed that for a few hours, I would probably watch that.
It is just a tragedy that I don't live on a starship, and like there's more Star Trek. It's like I just kind of just see myself there all the time. It's like I'm just like I'm on the bridge at the side going, oh, how are we going to get out of this one?
One of the things that someone said to me is like, oh, it's dark Star Trek. I mean, why do we want dark Star Trek? Star Trek's meant to be light. And I was thinking, did you ever watch the Dominion War seasons of Deep Space Nine?
Well,
it was got pretty dark at times for DS9 and for Voyager. In the Delta Quadrant with the Borg.
But to be fair, Star Trek generally it's a very optimistic view of the future.
Yeah.
But obviously there has to be drama and things in it. I do know that DS9 was started because it was getting a bit too optimistic for everybody, and they needed to have a darker series. So DS9 is basically Star Trek at its darkest. You've basically got the
so
Cardassians.
far. Yeah,
and this obviously once Battlestar was out, the newer series of that, a lot of sci-fi kind of followed that a little bit, that kind of style, and I feel like the Star Trek has had to kind of incorporate that a bit, but not too much. I mean, I was watching it thinking, yeah, this is darker than normal for Star Trek, but like if this was Battlestar Galactica, like half the characters would have committed suicide by now. There'd be all kinds of stuff going on. They'd be starving or something.
Compared to some things like that and Stargate Universe, for example, it's not.
The Star Trek universe.
But Stargate Universe, but the
Stargate.
But I think Stargate Universe, its darkness was what almost killed it, because a lot of people were tuning in expecting SG-1, expecting witticisms from a O'Neill Shepherd-like character.
Well, I'm living in the UK. We get the aftermath of everything, and we just find out like whether things got ratings or not, and had to get cancelled, and
we hate Fox.
Yeah, and we just have to live with the results.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I loved Universe, and
I loved Universe.
Yeah.
It was a tragedy that ended.
So yeah, I see what you mean. It's not as dark as a lot of things, and I think that as well. I do think it is a very positive view of the future, but because humanity is kind of going out as explorers and everything, it just so happens that they've started exploring too close to the Klingon Empire, and they don't like it. So
I think if you were a viewer and you were coming to this without any of the back history of Star Trek, I think you would probably like it more, because I mean we've both got long histories with the franchise. We've watched all the different series, and we've enjoyed them all. But that means that kind of for us, we can kind of look at it and kind of go, well, hang on, they're using technologies that are way beyond whatever they had in.
No, you do that. I just go with it.
And like, well, if this, I'm kind of waiting for something bad to happen with the spore drivers to show why they're not using that in the future series.
But they had to genetically engineer stamens for it. And they're not allowed to do eugenics. So
yeah, things like that, But
there's a Khan Union Singh waiting in the wings.
Yeah, but if you were approaching this without any knowledge of Star Trek before, you didn't know that it was meant to be this optimistic view, you probably, I think, would like it even more than someone going to it with all that knowledge.
I don't know. I would still love to live on the Discovery, even all the stuff they go through. Obviously, normally, like on the Enterprise and everything, there was a problem every week. Like on the original 60s one, like you're flying along in your Constitution class Enterprise, and then a giant green hand grabs the ship. So that kind of stuff happens in Starfleet. So yeah, I've just been really enjoying having a new series of Star Trek, and I'm quite happy with the kind of things that they've been doing with it. I loved seeing Rainn Wilson as Harcourt Mudd. I think that was great.
Actually, yeah, because I really liked
that as well.
Obviously, if you aren't familiar with the history of Star Trek, in the original series, Harcourt Fenton Mudd was a recurring kind of a villain, but never a particularly serious villain.
I think he was in two. He was in Mudd's Women, and then that one with all the flipping androids
on the planet. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Fenton was a really interesting
He's like
character.
A con man.
Yeah,
he was great.
And it's kind of when I knew that they were going to be bringing him into Discovery, I was kind of thinking, are they going to like take a character that I liked and ruin him? But actually, Rainn Wilson does an absolutely brilliant job in the one episode we've seen Mudd so far of portraying Mudd.
Yeah, he was just betraying everybody, wasn't he? Yeah, and
faithful to the original character, but with his own take on the character as well.
Yeah,
and I like it when people can do that, rather than just a complete recreation or something completely different. Very, very, very likable. Very much a rogue.
I've been trying to watch it kind of in a vacuum and not. I've been trying to like not know anything about it before it's going to be on the TV. So I watched that episode. I watched that with my parents when it was on the Monday, and I remember like being, that's Harry Mudd and it's Dwight. So I was really happy about that.
It was a bit strange when they dropped the F-bomb on Discovery though, because that sort of breaks with Star Trek tradition.
That was kind of awkward. I hope they don't continue with that.
That's something I hope they don't do as well.
We don't want it to be edgy. We want it to be Star Trek. You have whatever dark stories you want, because like there always was, even in the original trilogy, there would be ones where there was like thousands of people dying or something like that. But I mean,
but the crew
we
were
want
always
to watch
the
it and
beacons of
relax.
light.
Yeah, that's
Starfleet
it,
was the
yeah.
beacon of light, facing the darkness, facing the evil.
Yeah.
You don't want Star Trek to become the darkness.
Not that swerving is dark, but it's just a bit distasteful when you're watching it, because like people could be watching it with their kids and things like that, and it's just not necessary. I mean, who's going to think, oh, that's a much better program now because they said the F word?
Yeah.
So
But,
just grow up.
Yeah. But we are enjoying it, and we're looking forward to seeing the rest of
I'm
the
enjoying the
series.
heck out of it.
How much of that have you drank?
I know. I'm just having little sips all the time, and it's just.
Dude, is that synthahol?
Yeah, it's fine.
It's
yeah.
fine. It's fine.
Yeah,
It's
I'm
synthahol.
cool to talk on this. Yeah, it's fine. I can fly a shuttle pod.
We are, as I say, we are enjoying it, and we are looking forward to seeing how it progresses, how it develops over the rest of the series. And as far as I know, it's going to be in more episodes, so I'm looking forward to seeing that. I'm glad that some of the they've introduced some more likable characters, and that some of the characters that we've seen have become more likable. But I'm just really enjoying the story, and the effects that they've used are absolutely brilliant.
I loved that nebula when she went out to try and help Sarek, and he was lost in a nebula. It was all multicolored. That was cool.
We haven't said how much Sarek is so annoying. He was always annoying in the original series, but he's just a much worse person than we realised.
Well, actually, no. I was always surprised at what an idiot he could be. Like when he was first in the original series, and Kirk was saying, "Oh, Spock, you might like to show your father around the." Oh no, he didn't know his father, did he? You can show him around because you're another Vulcan, and he doesn't want to go around with Spock. He doesn't want to talk to Spock, and then Kirk later finds out that that's his dad. He is a ridiculously hard-hearted man. But we learn a little bit about why he had such a problem with Spock during Starfleet
In Discovery.
Because
In the last episode.
Oh yeah, no spoilers. Yeah. I was about to drop a massive spoiler then.
Yeah, don't drop the spoiler. It's not an F-bomb, but don't drop it.
No, it's almost as offensive. Yeah, so anyway, I love Discovery, and I'm looking forward to seeing what episode 7 brings, and it's just hopefully one day I'll get to live in space like they do.
So, what do you think about Star Trek Discovery? Have you seen it? Are you planning to watch it? And if not, why are you listening to this podcast?
I'm sure you reckon something.
Yeah, this is not a good segment for you if you hate all things Star Trek. So, but drop us a comment, let us know what you think, and come back at the end of the series and tell us what your final thoughts are. And I'm sure we'll probably have something to say at the end of the series too.
Yeah, we should maybe do another one of these of how it develops, kind of thing. Discovery 2. Yeah. Or maybe we take it all back. That might be the title.
At the end of the series, it may be Richard going there. I absolutely hated that. I can't believe they did that. Why have I been watching that for 15 episodes? And I'll be there going, you know what? That was all right.
Yeah. I'll need more synthahol.
Yeah. So, stay meddlesome.
Farewell, Quester. To find out about other productions by the Meddlesome Meeples, then check out our channel or rendezvous with us at meddlesomemeeples.com. Until next time, Quester, farewell and keep thine axe sharp.